Hello, everyone. My name is Jing. I'm the director of the Institute for Australian and Chinese Arts and Culture at Western Sydney University. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the land of the Darug people of the Darug Nation and acknowledge their ancestors being the traditional owners of their country for thousands of years. And we would like to pay our respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Today, we are very pleased to have the artist Dr. Cindy Chen with us for this candid quiz. Hello, Cindy, welcome.
Hello, Jing.
Nice to have you here.
Likewise.
Let's start with the first question. What is your Chinese zodiac sign?
I'm a fire tiger.
Wow, not only tiger, but a fire tiger. I know you are 25, right?
Of course.
Yeah, so this is the very Chinese way of asking people how old they are. So we calculate it very quickly and figure it out, as I just have. Okay, my next question is, when did you decide to be an artist? A, the moment I was born. B, when I failed my maths. C, when I could stand up for myself. D, when I realized I had a talent. E, when the other option was to be a medical doctor. C, other, please specify.
I decided to be an artist. I'm going to select the last one, other, because I initially wanted to be an astronaut, and I realized that I would be I have motion sickness. I get motion sickness. So I realized that I wouldn't be able to pursue that career path. So an artist was the next best thing.
Wow, I can see the connection. Close connection. Just reminds me when my daughter was very little. We asked her, what would you like to be? And she said, either school teacher or prime minister. Yeah, there is a connection. So I can see your connection, astronaut and artist. Yes, closely connected. Great answer. Oh, very surprising, but really good. Next question is, why did you choose to be an artist? A, to be starving. B, to become famous. C, to live an interesting life. D, to find an escape in the art world. E, I have no other option.
I would say E, I have no other option, because I want to be happy, and I realized that to be happy, I need to keep creating. And that's just how my mind works. And being an artist was actually the best avenue for that.
Yeah, it is really the creativity that brings you the joy. Yeah, I see. Yeah, very good one. Next question, what was the biggest obstacle or pressure in your path of becoming an artist? A, your parents and the family expectations. B, financial concerns. C, societal pressure and the measure of success. D, doubt of your own talent. E, lack of support to and appreciation of young artists.
That's a difficult one. I would say it changes over time. Currently, I would say B, financial concerns is the biggest challenge in actually practicing and continuing to practice as an artist. Because for our generation, as we are all aware, the challenges of actually buying a home, having a stable income, and also just I find that the financial burden being placed upon artists, and just the working conditions expected of artists is quite poor. So that is the biggest challenge, I would say, right now.
Very well said. And, you spoke for many artists, so that's the challenge that they are facing. People make assumptions and thinking, art just to come from nowhere. They don't need anything. No, it actually needs a lot of support, including financial support. The next question, what is the most common response from people when you tell them you're an artist? A, really? B, that's very nice. C, lucky you. D, can you make a living by creating art? E, so you are your own boss.
I would say B, that's very nice. And they say it in a slightly puzzled way because they don't always understand what it involves to be an artist. And funnily enough, when I was studying art and they were asking me, oh, what are you studying at uni? I would say fine arts, and people would say, oh, finance. So that was always a very amusing misunderstanding.
That's excellent one. I'm sure there is like a superficial connection as well. Seeing your face, you must have studied finance. Yeah, that's really, really good one. Okay, the next question. Who are your loyal supporters? A, your family. B, fellow artists. C, art lovers. D, gallery owners. E, none of the above.
I would say A, because my family, because they are the most constant supporters. All of the others may be loyal supporters at one point or another. And I think A is followed closely by B, fellow artists, because we try to support each other where we can, or the cohort that I'm fortunate to be a part of. But definitely my mother, my husband, my father and brother and my friends, they're definitely the people who give me the most constant, unwavering support.
That's really nice. That's really nice to hear. That's very, touching and heartening. It's really good having the support from the family. Not everyone has that. Next question is, who has had the biggest influence in your life?
I would have to say the first person that comes to my mind is probably my mother. And I feel like that is in like many areas of my life. But it's also because I'd say that in terms of my art practice, I'd say that I inherited my creativity from her, and she inherited her interests from her father. So he used to actually design and make shoes in Penang in Malaysia, and she loved to draw and she loved to make art, but then she never had the opportunity to pursue it professionally. So I think that the interest in creativity, the nurturing of creativity has mainly come through from my mother.
That's really good. I'm sure your mom's so happy when she hears this. Yeah, so important. And you are not the only one who had this answer. Other artists who have listed their mother as their biggest influence. So that says a lot about the role of a mother, to their children, not just raise them, but also the influence. It's really nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and also, mom would be the role model for you as well, ongoing. So yeah, it's really good. The next one is name one artist who you admire the most and tell us why.
I admire, so this is not just in Australia?
No, just in your life, in your career, in your world, the one artist that you admire the most.
Oh, that is incredibly difficult.
Yes.
Okay. So I will need to dig back into history because there are many artists who have influenced different facets of my practice, whether it be in experimental drawing or traditional life drawing, sound practices, listening practices. But if I was to say what really touches me, very closely in my heart, it would be the artist Hasegawa Tohaku, who is a Japanese artist from practicing in the 19th century. And I would say it was his work, Pine Trees, that really blew me away. And it's just something haunting that has stayed with me. And I saw it in person at the Tokyo National Museum during New Year's. And they bring it out in the New Year period because of the symbolism of pine trees. So particularly Hasegawa Tohaku, and particularly that artwork.
It's interesting because once you bring out the person that who you admire the most and have influence most, and it enlightened us. You definitely enlightened me seeing your art. So yeah, it's very interesting. The person who influences you to actually influence people who see your art too. My next question is, which artist do you find the most inspiring in Australia? A, Guan Wei. B, Guan Wei. C, Guan Wei. D, Guan Wei. E, other, please name.
Well, I'm going to be naughty and I need to choose E, because as much as I admire Guan Wei's works, I want to choose a female artist who she's called. Okay, I have two. I have Simran Gill and Joyce Hinterding. So for different reasons, Simran Gill, because she's an incredibly generous individual who I've spoken to twice about my work, and she's shared her thoughts, and then she's also shared her methods of practice as well. And I love the way that she weaves together material and story and memories through her works, and the way that she works across so many different mediums. And Joyce Hinterding is an artist who I greatly admire for her ways of pushing the boundaries with different technologies and playing with them and using them in ways that are very poetic. So harnessing energies around us through graphite, through the practice of drawing and transforming that into sound. So they're both artists whose practices embody different facets of my own practice that I would like to develop further in my art.
Yeah, they're very good answers, I have to say, even though you didn't choose Guan Wei. But yeah, it's really good because as I said, and I can see I can instantly see your art in a different light after hearing, your answer. Yeah, it make a difference. It's really, really good. And then, who influences you or inspired you and your practice. In relation to creative work, on average, how long does it take you to create an artwork? A, 1 week. B, a month. C, half a year. D, a year. E, other, please specify.
It depends on which aspects. So if we're talking about the entirety of a work whereby we're including, and I would include it, initial research and reading, as well as the actual physical act of making the work, whether it be in the studio or outside. Sometimes I work in response to things like rain and wind, but from conception through to research, through to the physical labor, and then through to the final piece, it can take months. It can take half a year, and if it's like an installation, for instance, that has different facets, so video, sound, paper pieces, then that can take like a year or so.
Well, this is very illuminating to people who are outside of the art creation. Next question, which colors do you use most often and why?
I use the colors that are in Chinese ink the most often, and they are different blacks. So for instance, in the work that you can see behind me, I use a bluish black, which is, you can see that bluish gray tint, and that is an ink that it has been made with pine soot. And there is also a warm black that has been made with the soot from burning, I think, oil. It's usually like, yes, because it has an oily sheen on the surface of the ink when I grind it. So it's those colors in black that I use the most, the different, the cool and the warm blacks and the different opacities of those blacks.
Excellent. Next question, what do you do when you experience an artist block? A, have a few drinks. B, take a break or read a book. C, start another project. D, simply wait till inspiration comes back. E, none of the above. Please specify.
I would say B, I read a book. And one thing that I do anyway is I love to read. And lately in the past few years, I really shifted towards nonfiction. And I've been reading, I think the things that I find the most inspiring are actually, I subscribe to the newsletter frontiers.org, which is like a scientific journal. It's like a open publishing journal. So you have so many interesting topics from neuroscience to biology, through to, I actually find cognitive psychology really interesting. And I find neuroscience combined with cognitive psychology combined with phenomenology. So I find writers such as Evan Thompson really interesting. So definitely reading is something that gives me new seeds that start to spring in my brain. And then sometimes other things happen in my life. So I will reflect upon things, and there may be very personal things that emerge. Sometimes things that have happened with family, and they will often cross-fertilize each other. And I feel like that's the nature of creativity. So I find that a lot of artists draw connections between things that may appear to be disparate to most people, but finding those connections and somehow stitching them together, that is actually what nurtures my creativity.
Well, I think that relates to many other writers, what they say, when they experience a writer's block, they often read other writers' books to break it. And then, as you say, creativity actually inspire other or your own creativity. Yeah, that makes sense. And I can relate to that. It's like just, and when you're in the deadlock, yes, reading a book and to take you out of it and into a new place. Yeah.
Books are magical.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, yes. Next question. Do you have a recurrent theme? A, if yes, what is it? If no, why not?
I would say yes. And this would be listening. So whether it be actually physically listening to the world around me and listening to the sounds that might occur in places that might be like birds, the wind, the things that really anchor you physically within a place. But there's also embodied listening, where I listen to the way that my body is within places. So for instance, I find that I've been practicing Iyengar yoga for the last 5 years or so, and that bodily awareness is a form of deep listening for me. And that influences the way that I draw and the way that I record sounds as well. And then also listening, more recently, the listening has expanded to histories. So for instance, right now, for the Visual Arts Emerging Fellowship, I'm currently researching the histories of the women's cell block, D block at the National Arts School, and also the histories within sandstone. So all of those things combined with listening to my own mental processes, that is something that is definitely a recurrent theme. And again, relating to the previous question, it is what nurtures my creativity, that openness and awareness of what is happening around you and what you're absorbing and how you're absorbing it through your mind.
Fascinating, so that no wonder, all your artworks, you really just arouse sensitivity and awareness that people often do not realize that they are there. And once you have it, you see the world in a different light, in a different way, and you see different things. You're talking about listening. It's a fascinating, listening. It's not just the seeing, but also listening. It's really amazing. The next question is a kind of not relevant, but relevant. Which of the following scenarios would annoy you? A, people misunderstand your artwork. B, your artwork is hung upside down by mistake. C, some viewers are critical of your works. D, someone you barely know asks you to draw a picture as a free gift.
Well, I have to say that the first three would amuse and delight me greatly because I find that artworks are like, I think of artworks as people or similar to people, because you get along with some and you don't get along with others. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that if you take the time to get to know an artwork or a person a little bit, then you might actually find some kind of shared middle ground or shared humanity within them. So I would be very happy for people to find their own meaning in my artwork. And if my artwork was hung upside down, I would find it hilarious and I'd love it because it might make me see the artwork in a different way. And I want people to be critical, and I want people to tell me their feedback and their interpretations as well. So D is something that I would have a gripe with. So if somebody that I barely know asked me to draw a picture as a free gift, I would probably start telling them about the conditions in which artists need to work right now. So they'll probably get a lecture from me in regards to that.
Well said. It's a great, first part and second part. It's a great answer, and very thought-provoking and thoughtful too. So it's really enlightening. I love the second part. And again, you are not the first one or only one. So it's great. Next question: what is the constant challenge you face in your artistic creation? A, fear of a failure. B, lack of a financial support. C, too much fun. D, not enough time. E, constant disruptions.
I would say D, not enough time. And it is closely related to B, lack of financial support, mainly because for many artists, some of us work 3 jobs, and those jobs are very often casual, contract-based, and what I find in regards to time, it's not just the amount of time or the quantity, it's about the quality and the type of time and space that we have. So as artists, we need time to think, to play, to dream, to open that space for the musings and those connections to occur and to reflect as well. But very often, and it's sometimes a good problem to have, where you have lots of projects and it's great to have lots of projects, but then you do need time where you are able to get away and to allow all of the things that you've been absorbing to germinate and to grow and to emerge, so that you can actually to work with them. So it's about quantity and quality of time, I would say.
Yes, I mean, quantity especially important, because to general assumption that art can be created in your spare 5 minutes, when you have a spare time, you do it. It's not spare time, it's actually main time. Yeah. Okay, so in relation to that, what matters to you? A, to be true to yourself. B, to be successful. C, to make a difference. D, to be happy. E, all of the above. F, none of the above. Please specify.
I would say E, all of the above. And I think that the most important ones of those are A, to be true to myself, and D, to be happy. And I think those are very closely connected, that we can only be happy when we are being true to ourselves. And being successful, like, we have different definitions of what success is, and they can change as we go throughout life. But I think that, at some points in life, it might be, you're successful if you can support, as a professional artist, if you can support yourself by your own practice, or simply being happy through making and being true to yourself is also a success too. And to make a difference, that's something that I do, not only through my art. Like, if I'm able to evoke curiosity or incite curiosity and puzzlement, and asking questions in a person, then I would say that I've made a slight difference in somebody in this world. And I also do make a difference as an educator as well. So I'm an artist educator, and I'm so grateful that I can make use of my creative skills, of my sensitivity, of my intuition, of my ability to connect with people, to actually share art with them, to get them to think about art, and encourage them to engage with their own creativity. So all of those things are aspects of my working life that I'm incredibly grateful for.
I love your interpretation of a making difference. It's really, really important and insightful as well. Mm-hmm. Next question, who do you think you are? A, determined. B, interesting. C, idealistic. D, focused. E, easygoing. F, other. Please specify.
I would say that, I'd like to think that I'm interesting, B.
You certainly are, very.
but I won't say that. I would say I hope that I'm determined, because I would, and tenacious, as another description that I've had. One of my supervisors very kindly described me as tenacious, and I think that as artists we need to be very tenacious, whether or not we're determined to get to a particular goal as such, but it requires a lot of tenacity to actually hold on like a bulldog to that thing that you want to do, even when you are knocked down repeatedly. And as an artist, you get knocked down a lot, and especially when you are in those early stages, and you're applying for things, you're applying for grants, exhibitions, applying for my PhD, getting really hard knockbacks. I think and surviving them and learning from them, they are moments that actually really test your your desire, or they really test your belief, and they make you question why you are wanting to do what you do. So I feel like I see those moments now as blessings, even though they were incredibly difficult. So fingers crossed, I would say that tenacity is one of my most valuable and most defining characteristics.
Yeah, so true. And you know, so enlightening the way you see it. Yes, indeed. And then people often see success in people who have already successful. So they only see the end, not realizing there is a long path, you know, from the beginning. In the beginning, it's way harder. I mean, seeing success is easy, but starting it is a lot harder. And being an artist, yes, that's, as you said, lots of knockdowns, and then you are not defeated by that. Yes, it is an admiring quality that all the artists have. Next question, you may say yes or no. That's interesting to hear. Who is your favorite prime minister or politician in Australia? And just bear in mind that none is acceptable.
Can I say somebody who was very briefly a prime minister, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because my politics is not very good. Julia Gillard.
Yes.
Not necessarily because of policies, but purely on the basis of her misogyny speech, because I feel that was an essential moment, and I feel that, God, we need that again. we really have not learned in regards to, you know, what all the things that have unraveled in Parliament recently. So I would just say that as like a key moment in Australian politics, not necessarily as anyone that is my favorite as such, but a moment that was utterly essential.
I can't agree with you more. I mean, that's a well chosen, you know. Yeah, it is a great moment. And that video went viral around the world for a very good reason. Yes, that is so good that I picked that one. Next question is, what's your poison, meaning favorite beverage? A, tea. B, coffee. C, whiskey or vodka. D, tap water. E, Milo. F, wine. G, milk bubble tea.
I would say D, and specifically boiled tap water. So it is something that is, I think it's very Chinese, and it's something that my parents have very strongly instilled in me, is that we must boil our tap water before we drink it. And my father always said, in the morning when you wake up, drink a glass of warm water. So never cold, never hot, just warm. And you know what? Recently, I was watching a podcast, a video interview, by the neuroscientist Lisa Mosconi, who is currently leading a research lab on dementia in women in New York. And she specifically mentions 2 glasses of warm water is what dilates your arteries and your capillaries. So it's what actually, it opens up all of your blood vessels, and it delivers vital moisture to your brain. And it's what she actually gives to all of her patients before they get a brain scan. So Chinese people were right. We've known it for thousands of years.
Yes, for a reason. That's right.
Exactly.
Ancient culture and ancient habit or custom, there is a reason for it.
Yes.
And then the reason for it that it can be passed down for generations and generations. I do too. I always avoid tap water. I never drink tap water. I always boil it. Yes, that's so important. I'm glad that you give a scientific, you know, reasoning around it as well. It's great. Next one, what did you listen to while working on your art during the lockdowns? A, classic music or jazz. B, Chinese traditional music like erhu or pipa. C, heavy metal. D, top chart pop music. E, industrial noise in the neighborhood. F, nagging from household members. G, silence?
Well, I would have to say none of those because during the lockdowns, I was making art specifically for an exhibition that opens this evening, actually, on the 10th of December. And it was for an exhibition called Presence of Mind, which includes artists who have a Buddhist practice as well. So I was actually listening a lot, and this is something that I return to quite often, but especially when I am experiencing times of difficulty or anxiety. And definitely during lockdowns, it was a very anxious period, waiting for vaccines to come out as well. So I was listening a lot to Buddhist Dharma talks by particularly Ajahn Sona, who is a monk based in Birken Monastery in Canada. And he's part of the Theravada Thai forest Buddhist tradition. So I was listening to Dharma talks, and then also to my own thoughts. So I would never really say that I'm ever in silence as such, because that monkey chatter in my brain is always it's always there. And even within the silence, if you listen very closely to what seems like silence, you will hear so many things happening around you. So you'll start hearing the building, you start hearing the air moving. So yes, those were the things that I listened to, and it's what I hear while I'm making my art.
Well, that's again, it's about the Buddhism, and also, the silence through meditation. Meditation in Chinese, we call it the Da Zuo, not so abstract. It's actually quite practical. You practice the sit downs, and then, you settle your mind, you listen. Yeah, exactly. You describe so beautifully about the silence. It's not like silence, but you listen, you hear things, you hear the world. Yes, it's so beautiful. The next question is, if you were a multi-billionaire, what would be your preferred mode of transport? A private jet. B, bright red Mercedes with 888 next to your initials in the register plate. C, latest electric scooter. D, public transport. E, mountain bike. F, just walk to get your 10,000 steps in.
I guess it depends how far we have to go. But if it's within, let's say it's within Sydney, I would still prefer walking and public transport. And if I had to drive a car, and if I was a multi-billionaire, okay, I would like some sort of electric vehicle, actually. Probably, like if Tesla ever started making an SUV that was large enough to carry my artworks, but also, was practical and was also powered by electricity. So, because of course, as a multi-billionaire, I would have a house that is completely solar powered and built along passive solar principles. So that would be what I prefer. Yeah.
I can clearly see the connection of being an astronaut and an artist. It's very much you. You have a great scientific mind as well. Yes. Last question, COVID permitting. Where would it be your dream destination of a travel, and why?
Oh, my dream destination of travel. Can we time travel as well?
Yes. Yes.
My dream destination of travel would be to a future home, probably in Sydney, but one where, let's say like 50 years from now, one where all of the homes were built well and they were built sustainably. There was good planning so that the state government isn't cramming people into metropolitan areas, where we would, instead of like a biodome, we would actually be connected to the country that is around us. There would be lots and lots of native trees and lots of different species of gum trees. So it would be where I am now, but in a much better projected state than where we are heading.
Thank you so much, Cindy. All your answers are excellent. It does, they all reveal like you have such a fine mind and super developed sensitivity and awareness. And I truly believe the world would be so much better with more people, more young artists like you. Thank you so much. It's really appreciated.
Thank you so much, Jing. It's been a pleasure talking to you.